Yo, yo, yo. It's your boy HifiVega. This is the 12 days of streaming, although it's going to be a few less this year because, just the way it landed. But what better way to start it off than with the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who has more get out of jail free cards than a Monopoly board. Some call him Kip. I call him my buddy, my friend. What's up, Kip?
How you doing tonight, man? Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you join me. It's always a good time.
You say that, but the truth is, when you reached out and wanted to get me on one of the shows, the feelings at least mutual, if not more so on my side. I'm honored that you wanted to have me on, so I'm glad to be here. Obviously, for me, anytime I join any type of feed, it's just easier to get in the car and drive up here to the studio. I live about 2 miles away. And so with all the gear set up here, it's just easier to come from here than it is from home, because I don't have anything nearly as good as this at home.
Definitely. I mean, nobody does.
No.
Let's just be honest. No, matter of fact, we can do a spoiler alert now. I'm going to be live in studio next week, and I plan on coming back that Wednesday after live, and maybe we can do a live stream for my live stream, and we'll just show the studio.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
That would be fun. Yes. So I haven't had time, dude. I've been working so much overtime. I have not had time. I've got this set up over the weekend. I haven't got to any of my lighting. There is literally about 500 foot of wire sitting just right here. I can touch it with my hand. So I need to get all that put up. But yes, I do have a new backdrop.
It's a little strange for me tonight because I can see the comment feed, but I have absolutely no control over it. So I feel like I've got my hands tied behind my back, helpless. But I do see Justin Silva chiming in. Hey, what's up, Kip and Rob from windblown Colorado? Hey, Justin, I don't know how windy it is in Colorado today, but I actually had to run to Oklahoma City this morning, do some things, get back before lunchtime. And my vehicle, the wind was so strong, my vehicle was constantly rocking back and forth, and driving down, going south, the wind was out of the south. I think I got maybe 2 miles to the gallon, and then coming back, I just put a sheet up and it just blew me home coming north. I mean, the wind here today, we get a lot of wind in Oklahoma, but here today it was stupid strong. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I feel your pain.
Unseasonably hot today. I actually sweat a little bit at work. Oh, here we go. Scott, so I got to mention it. I got to mention the beard. Shout out to the beard. So my wife's watching Unmasked with me last night, as always. And she's like, what's going on with Kip's face? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, the beard. She's like, you're growing out the hair. He's growing out the beard. Like, what's going on with you guys?
Well, I can give you the funny answer is, when you quit being able to grow it on top of your head, you take whatever you can get. But the truth of the matter is, back when we did the episode here at Unmasked and I like to call it the fall festival, Halloween, they wanted me to get that shirt that if you've watched Stranger Things, it's called the Hopper shirt. And it's kind of that Hawaiian flamingo looking weird thing. And they wanted me to dress up like Hopper. So I had the Hopper shirt, I had the hair, I had the hat, and I dressed up like Hopper. And Ernie and the guy said, we need you to be a little bit scruff for that show, because Hopper's kind of scruffy in the Stranger Things. I said, okay, I'll let it grow out, because I've been cursed. I mean, I was growing a full beard by the time I was 13, no exaggeration. I was one of those kids that, facial hair came real early for me. Of course, it was great when I was 16 and wanting to go to the bars with all the older guys. I got in without no problem. Right. But I grew it out for the Stranger Things episode that we did, kind of a tribute show. And I just kind of like, it's kind of cold. It's fall, winter. I think I'm just going to leave it go for a while. So I'm going to try to keep it through the end of the year, or until my wife shaves it off in my sleep, whichever comes first.
Definitely going to happen. Mine's similar. That I was like, why not grow out my hair? It's cold. I went out one day. I didn't have my hoodie on, and I was like, my head is cold right now. I should grow out my hair. So
might as well do it. It was really warm here today as well, Hi-Fi. I mean, it was really warm, but man, it was windy. It died down a little bit this evening, but man, the wind today was I could have probably went out and used a bathtub as a kite. It was windy.
Oh man, I got myself. I love being frugal, and I hate it sometimes at the same time. So our air conditioner had a Freon leak this summer. We've had it repaired twice. Apparently, it's leaked out again. It happened earlier in December, like a couple weeks ago. Wife's like, you want me to call the guy out, get it fixed? Of course, my answer is like, no, it's December. We can make it till February, and we'll call him then, and we'll get it fixed before it starts to get hot. Here we are. It's hot. I've got the window open. So if we hear a dog barking very close, that's because that dog is literally right outside the window here.
That's funny.
All right, but
That's good stuff.
Tonight, man, I just figured it's going to be kind of loose. I don't have an exact plan, but if
I'm
there's
glad
one
you
thing
don't,
I know,
I don't.
Well, see, because I know there's one thing you're good at, and you're good at being on the fly with car audio help. So I call this the car audio helpline. Anybody that has questions, pop them up, put them in chat, and we'll see what Kip. I know he's got an answer. He might have to go back in the Mind Rolodex, but he will find you an answer.
Well, here's the thing. If we get questions, I say this jokingly, but it's really the truth, is that, good decisions and good information comes from wisdom. Well, where does wisdom come from? Well, that comes from experience. Well, where does experience come from? Well, that comes from making bad decisions. So there's a lot of things that a lot of us know, and it doesn't matter if you're into car audio or, construction or pouring concrete. I don't care what you focused on as trying to be, an expert at, is you make a lot of bad decisions. And from those bad decisions, you do gain experience, which leads to wisdom, which leads to you being able to share with someone, you could do it that way, but I wouldn't, and here's why, because this is what I learned or what was taught to me over the years of, learning through bad decisions and experience, and it's come to be called wisdom. So I'm always glad to share and try to help out anyone I can. I enjoyed it my whole time when I worked in retail. I did it as a rep. Working for Kicker, my first job here was on tech support. And I'm one of those guys that even though I'm an associate director of marketing here today, I don't forget my first job here at Kicker, and I love the product. And so I try to stay up on top of it. I can't keep every product and every spec in my head. That's what a laptop's good for, so you can look that stuff up. But I do love sharing. But the truth of the matter is, if you ask a question and I don't have at least a good answer or a good theory I think will work, I've got no problem telling you I don't know it. But the cool part is, with working in a house full of engineers, I can always go find out.
Right. Yeah, that's the best thing. And often, I've said this before in my videos, people will comment like I'm an expert on this video, and it's like, maybe I didn't put this out there good enough, but I'm learning this and videoing it. This is not the expert video.
You gotta pop up that one from SD Designs. He just gave you a $10 shout out there.
All right.
Bring that one up.
Are you smart enough to know that he's dumb enough that if I pay attention, I'm going to learn something? Kip Litsey, was that 2021 or 2020?
That is actually a phrase that I've used several times on the show, and I've said it in some other feeds I've been invited to. And it's truly, I mean this sincerely. I figured out a long time ago that, everyone can kind of, I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm pretty smart. Yeah, I know this and I know that. But a while back, I figured out I'm smart enough that I finally figured out that I'm dumb enough that if I wake up every day and pay attention and keep my ears open a little more than my mouth running, I'll actually learn something. And there's a lot of things I've learned in life that, goes two ways. I either learned something totally new I didn't know. I learned that what I thought I knew was wrong, and then that makes me go research it and actually so I can get on the right page. Or I learned that what I knew was right, and it's kind of a good feeling to validate that what you've been sharing with other people, that you've at least been leading them down the right path. Because nothing to me feels worse than giving someone inaccurate information, especially when it's not intentional. I mean, I know ribbing a buddy or, giving someone some grief or trolling is a different thing. But if you're really trying to help someone and you give them inaccurate information, then you come to find out that you were wrong. To me, it's a real humbling experience. It's like, man, I really thought I knew that. And so let me go find out what I didn't know so I don't make that mistake the next time, and I can be a valuable resource to the next person who asks.
Yeah, and it's even better when you're doing that in chat, and then me and Dean notice what you're doing, and we're like, no. We just, we had to look, and it's like, dude, here it is. Fire away. Let's go. Let's troll Kip.
You guys got me that night on the wire. Oh, you got me good that night. Oh, that was good. Living Loud with Andy got a question. How many L7X demos does it take to fill the heart with content?
One. Just one. And I'm getting one. I'm getting one next week, man. I got to.
You are going to get one while you're here. We've done a couple demos in the studio over the last two shows. 2 weeks ago, we had the L7X15 in a cabinet, and we put it through some paces. And a lot of people, it was funny, we got the 10, the 12, and the 15, but the one that people asked about was a 10. Everyone kept asking questions about the 10. So on last night's show, I said I didn't know if we'd have time because I'm really trying to get in that habit to keeping the show right at 90 minutes. It's become a running joke that I say the show's 90 minutes. It's you know, it's 90-ish minutes, I guess would be the answer. But I had that L7X10 set up here free air, and I actually took that idea, and I got to give him a shout out. I don't know if he's in the feed or if he'll see this later, but MB from MB Enclosure, man, that guy, he's a genuine real deal. I mean, he doesn't pull any punches. He just tells you what he knows. He's good at what he does, and he does a lot of those free air demos. And which, speaking of, if anyone knows the song that he's playing in that free air demo, give a shout out. I'd like to know what song that is. I know what it is, but I don't know what it is. I've heard it. And so we just powered up that L7X10 here last night and ran it through some free air testing. And Andy was really the one, I keep shouting out to Andy because he's the one that kind of gave me grief over that, because he talks about, you know, man, that might be the woofer for Kayla's car. You know, maybe I'll do one of those or a pair of those. And so I know I can't read every comment on everything that's posted from ours, much less shared from others. Like Billy Temple did that post that he did with the woofer. And there's a lot of comments in there, and I try to go in and answer as many questions as I can. And this is the one thing that's come up, and I can't say this enough other than to ask people to understand. When we released all that information on L7X, on my level, Wiz Khalifa, that's it. Thank you, Living Loud with Andy, Mr. McGill. Appreciate that. I'm going to pull that up. That may be my new track to try. MB gets away with it, and he doesn't get flagged for copyright. So I guess if it's just the subwoofer, maybe you can do that.
Right.
But, you know, when we did the original release of all the information on the L7X, which replaced our SEMA show in 2020, I need you guys to understand at that time, our goal was to release the L7X subwoofer first quarter, maybe no later than second quarter this year. And so I've read through a lot of the comments. There's some angst where people are really anxious and wondering, okay, man, when are we going to see this thing? When are we going to see this thing? And that is one of the negative side effects if you release information about a product too early, is people can get overly anxious and actually get wore out and tired of waiting. Right. So our original plan was, hey, let's talk about this in October. That's October, November, December, January, February, March. We'll probably release it March, April. That's a 6-month lead time. That's not too long. People get excited about it. We can do some demos. We can, you know, do some inside stuff, and people will think that's cool. And then this thing called COVID happened. And, you know, I'm not using it as an excuse. You can go talk to anyone in any industry, new car manufacturing, food, clothing, electronics, home goods. It doesn't matter. The global supply, sub-supply, and logistics, the whole system, as I like to call it, it's a dumpster fire. And so everything that Kicker wanted to come to market with has been significantly delayed, and we're not the only company going through this. So all I can say is we're sorry. If we would have known that COVID was going to happen and do what it did, we would have never released the information on Solo X until probably right now. We'd have probably talked about it now, because we're looking at a second quarter release coming up in 2022. So all I can do is for everyone here at Kicker say, we're sorry. We're anxious too. We want to get it out. There are other products that you don't even know about besides the L7X that we were going to have to market the first quarter this year, and COVID has ruined it for everybody. And I'm going to be as transparent as I can. I'm always going to tell you the truth, and that's what's holding things up. What's used to take weeks when it comes to, you know, changing tooling, getting a new part, to try a new part, what used to take weeks now takes months. And that's what's happened to the entire supply chain. And I'll say it anytime I get a chance when people ask, because I know sometimes people don't hear it, but understand we here at Kicker are doing everything we can every day to not just get new products that are cool like the L7X out, but just the current products that we have in the pipeline. Because even making things we already make, it's chip shortages, they're real. DSP shortages, it's real. Raw material shortages, it's real. There's no other way to say this other than I'm living in a time that I call unprecedented, that if you'd have came to Kip 10 years ago and said, hey, Kip, In 2020, guess what? This is going to happen. And I would go, oh, you're freaking crazy. That's not going to happen. That's impossible. I mean, that is something that's almost like sci-fi, end of the world. It's in a movie. That's not real life.
Yeah,
and
they've had several movies about it.
Yeah. But we're living it. And so all I can say is anyone out there who has been around since the original release of the information for L7X and has been hanging in there. That's why I try to get when I've got a sample that I can get out here and show you guys what it's doing and where we're at in the progress. I love showing it to you because you guys are definitely in on the ride with us. And so if I could ask anything, if you like knowing about what we're doing early, get on the ride and enjoy it. Don't get on the ride and be a hater about it, because negative feedback about it's taking so long, and there have been a few guys that have posted some pretty negative things. Trust me, too much of that information, then my boss's boss is going to come to me and go, we can't talk about that stuff anymore.
Oh yeah, and I think you guys get more guff just because you do a weekly show. If you were another manufacturer, you could have just disappeared into the ether for a year. People would have been talking about it, but not as much, because they literally can reach out and touch you every single week about it.
Big Mike in Tampa, and again, I'm not in control of the show tonight, so it feels a little bit weird, but you guys, it says, what did Kicker show at CES? CES, last year, we didn't go to CES. Anything we would have showed at CES, we also show at SEMA. So when we go to SEMA, basically this is how we work it out. When we go to the SEMA show, we show anything at SEMA that's going to be available in the next 6 months. So if it's going to be the first half of the following year, we showed at SEMA. And then we also basically show those exact same things at CES. Now, between SEMA and CES, because there's a couple months of time difference there, maybe something that we didn't think was going to be available, so we didn't show it at SEMA, we would talk about it at CES. And what a lot of you may not know is, as a company, we have decided to not go to CES. We did not go to CES last year. We have no plans to go to CES this year, and we don't have any plans to go to CES going forward. Our plan is that SEMA is going to be our big show that we'll go to and attend, and we will talk about any of the cool new product during that time frame at SEMA. Now, that being said, I can kind of let a little cat out of the bag. Is tomorrow we are actually doing a private training for all of our reps. So anyone who is a Kicker rep, they have to know what the new programs are going to be for 2022. They need to know what new products we're looking to possibly have available for 2022. And there's other products besides L7X that's going to be available in 2022. And we are letting our reps know about all of that tomorrow. So if I was a betting man with the patented wink, I would say that in a pretty soon, in an upcoming Unmasked Live Weekly on a Tuesday night, we're going to have a show where we're going to talk about new products that you don't even know anything about yet. So stay tuned for that.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to that for sure.
I am too. I mean, I love, as I jokingly tell people, it's not that I can't keep a secret. It's the people I tell. They won't keep their mouth shut.
It's always their fault.
It always comes back to my fault anyway. But
Mr. Byron right here with the $20 holla. I got a chance to meet him in North Carolina. We broke bread. We got to hang out at the Sundown show. He's a really cool guy with a cool system.
You know, I'm looking forward to, and I know there's a lot of people in the feed here who the only reason they know me is because they may have seen me on Unmasked, or maybe they've seen me on your show or another show. But I do enjoy traveling. I enjoy getting out and going to events and meeting people and going to, like, I don't like going to chain restaurants. Like if you go out and if we're at a show and we get together and we're going to go have dinner together or lunch, trust me, I'm looking for the local joint. I don't want to go to a chain restaurant. And I love experiencing good food, good atmosphere. And good atmosphere doesn't mean that it's pristine. I mean, I like going to a hole in the wall. Like, you take me to a good hole in the wall that's got just a cool atmosphere, and they're known, they make a specialty. I don't care if it's, this place is known for fried chicken, or this place is known for steak, or this place is known for gumbo, whatever it is. I love visiting those places because those are the places that I get meals, to me, that are the most memorable. So if a lot of you don't know, that's who I am, and I'm looking forward to this whole travel restriction ban lifting, because I want to get back on the road next year and hopefully get an opportunity to meet some of you people at shows in flesh and blood.
Oh yeah, man, that's always the best thing. And it's like, hey, sometimes you got to get out there and shake hands and eat the food. It's like getting an SQ demo. I don't want to listen to the Ayahuasca CD. I want to listen to what you listen to on it. Same thing with restaurant. I want to go where you go to get a burger. Unless it's a McDonald's, then you're trash.
Okay, I gotta give a shout out here, Deviant. Mr. Five Guys doesn't like chain restaurants. Five Guys is one of the few chain restaurants that I actually enjoy because Five Guys does make a mean hamburger and their fries are awesome.
Oh, dude, let me
exception to the rule.
Here. I've been doing keto and I haven't had fries. I love fries, maybe more than hamburgers, but I love hamburgers a lot as well. We had a cheat day. I was like, you know what? We're getting to Five Guys, dude. I don't even care if I get a burger. I want a bag of fries.
Their fries are awesome there. Hey, I see a question. We are trying to answer questions. Do you see that one there? High Five asks, is Q class being phased out completely? RVH, you ask the hard questions, don't you? The coaxial products and the component products are still current. They will change at some point. It'll probably be later rather than sooner because of the whole issue with the global supply chain. Like we had two lines of amplifiers, IQ and KX. Both those amplifiers went end of life at the beginning of this year, and under normal circumstances, we would have replacement amplifiers, new models that would replace those and have been available this year. So this whole global supply chain thing, it didn't just affect L7X. It affected those two replacement amplifiers that we haven't even talked to you about yet. And we can't talk to you about yet until we can get a handle on when they're going to be available. So Q-Class, as you see it, obviously the IQ amplifiers are gone. Look for something coming down the pipeline in the future that'll be different there. The components and coaxials will stay current. Woofers, though, they're not going to go away.
Oh, there we go. So we might get something new.
Yeah, something new.
Kiss lock, kiss load talk.
Dominique Davis, that's the question I saw on it. Hey, it's funny you saw that and pulled it up. Not sure if I need the kiss load 2 or the kiss lock 2. I have an LC2I, but was told I should go high level to the amp. Dominique, without knowing your entire system setup, what you're trying to do, I don't know how helpful I can be other than the KISS Load 2 is only needed if you're using a factory radio or factory amplifier that has to see a load before it will pass signal. A lot of the new Chrysler products, it's moving its way into Fords and GMs. If you disconnect the factory speaker from the factory radio or the factory amplifier, so you disconnect it and then you hook into either a line output converter like a KISS lock or an LC2I, or even say you go into a kicker amp, because they all do, they have fit technology where you can literally take the speaker leads directly into the RCA input. Our amplifiers are designed for that. If that radio needs to have a low impedance load and sense it before it'll pass signal, that's when you need a KISS Load 2. Now, if you've got a factory radio that doesn't need that low impedance sense for it to pass signal, then you could go straight into an LC2I, no problem. You could go into a KISS Lock 2 if you're going into any other product that doesn't have the ability to accept a high-level signal. And I know the LC2I will take up to 40 volts, so that shouldn't be any problem. And that's just like our FIT technology, our FIT 2. It'll take up to 40 volts directly into the RCAs. So KISS Load 2, you only need that if your factory radio is not passing a signal. So if you disconnect your factory speakers, hook it to a LC2I or to a kicker amp or to a line output converter and there's no audio, that is your indication right there. You need a KISS Load. And the KISS Load is in a chassis. It's about as big as a man's wallet, a typical man's wallet. It's a heat sink. It has some 25 ohm or 25 watt low. And man, it's raining like a big dog here. Like I can hear it through the roof now. Holy moly, it's raining. So that's when you need the KISS Load 2. People ask us all the time, well, how do I know if I need a KISS Load? It's real easy. Hook up your whole system, turn it on. If there's no audio passing, your radio has that protection circuit in it, and you need a KISS Load so it will turn itself on. So hopefully just telling you what the difference in those products is helps you figure out what path you need to go. If you need more information than that, I highly encourage you, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, you can always call Kicker. Hit the website to get the number, because I know you won't remember it from me telling you, but it's 800-256-0808. Our techs up there, Central Time, 8 to 5, can answer any of those questions for you, man, and that's what we're here for.
Perfect.
Does Kicker hire for remote positions where you are not based in Oklahoma? Larry H. There's a few positions for people here, and they are not stationed here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, but it is the exception and not the norm. For example, one of my best friends who I was actually here and at the meeting where he got hired to work for Kicker, his name's Brad Gans. He actually handles part of our regional territories, the sales manager for Kicker, but one of the big accounts he deals with is Walmart. And so he actually needed to move over to Bentonville to be closer to their corporate offices so he could be there to help them do the things they need to do as far as planning for Kicker products that they carry. And he also handles a portion of the United States. So it was approved and he was able to move over there and do that. Offshore wise, we do have some people that work for us in Eastern countries, Asian countries, whether it be Japan, Thailand, Taiwan, Korea, China. We do have people who work direct for Kicker. They are basically our eyes and ears in the field over there for things. But other than that, there's really, if you're going to work for Kicker, you got to be here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. There's very few exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, you got to fly in on the one plane that comes in, 2 planes a day, 2 flights a day. So
yeah, right now it's hopefully that'll change sometime. They keep talking about it will, but what determines end of life? 25 hertz to life. That's a good question from 25 hertz to life. EOL is determined by a lot of different factors. It could be a simple fact that sales numbers for a product are just so low that it's not profitable to continue making that specific product, so it can go end of life. It can also be, especially when you start dealing with anything that uses microprocessors, DSPs, specific FETs, which are field effect transistors. There are some of those parts that when you design a product, those products are new, hot, and those are the cool parts to use at that time. So you design up a product, you build it, and you sell it for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And what happens is the manufacturer of those parts, whether it's the DSP, the microprocessor controller, the FETs, they just quit making that part. They may not make a replacement part that is pin for pin compatible. So you reach a point where you go, we can't make this anymore. So it's at that point, as crazy as it sounds, it's easier to flush that product completely away and design one from scratch than it is to try to find a part that may or may not be replaceable. The only product I can tell you that we jumped through hoops on to make that happen is the DSP that we use in the Key 200.4. That DSP chip is unavailable. Won't be available for probably another 2 years from the manufacturer we got it from. If you're familiar with it, it's AKM. That's the company that burned to the ground. They make all those processors. Yeah. So we had to shift gears and actually do a completely different DSP chip for that amplifier to be functional. But here's the crazy part is the circuit boards are completely different. It's like 2 completely different amplifiers. They're not identical inside at all. They have the same THD, the same power. They do the exact same thing. They perform identically, but it's not the same circuit board. So, there's a case of where, that product didn't really go end of life, but the version we had went end of life for 2 years. It's going to come back, but it can't come back until the parts are available. And then on top of that, we're in a habit here at Kicker. Most products, they feel fresh, they feel current for about a 2 to 4 year span of time. And then over that 2 to 4 years, maybe we've discovered a new way to make a motor, or maybe there's a new adhesive for voice coils, or there's new technology to use inside of amplifiers. We try to keep up and stay current with technology. So there does come a point where about every 2 to 4 years, you just feel like it's time to refresh a line because there's cool enough new technology, whether we've come up with it and our engineers in-house, or it's the parts that we used to go in the amplifiers. We just find a reason to want to do it. So there's a lot of reasons why something goes end of life. Hopefully that covers the big ones for you.
Yeah, that's a very good, well thought out answer. Now this one, see, I think on this one, I think people I would love for this to happen. A lot of enthusiasts would love for this to happen, but I wonder, being a company as big as Kicker, this is such a niche thing. Rockford done it with 25 to life, and I don't know exactly how that worked out for them, but you don't see a whole lot of those amps out.
The thing about that is, unfortunately for all of us, time marches on and things change. A lot of people want to see a different look. Even we want to see a different look. But there is a definite, strong, nostalgic feel for those original gold letter Kicker drivers. And I get it. My first experience with Kicker was buying, using, and then eventually selling those at retail, the original comp and free air drivers. So I get the attraction to those drivers. The thing I can tell you is if you look in Kicker's past, when we have a significant milestone as far as an anniversary, we do tend to come out with anniversary products that are exciting. Like if you go back to the 25th anniversary, we came out with the, I want to say silver, that's not correct. They were chrome plated polished baskets for solo barracks and things like that. And they were a limited run. We made so many, and when they're gone, they're gone. And so you don't see a lot of those products out in the field because people who buy them cherish them. A lot of times they don't get used, or if they do get used and eventually, if they go bad, there's no replacing them because they were a limited run to begin with. So the best thing I can say to answer your question is we understand that people have a nostalgia for certain things in our product line. And all I can do is drop you the little hint that, the 50th anniversary is coming. So if we were ever going to do something cool, nostalgic, big anniversaries like that is where we would do something, whether it's amplifiers or speakers or, whatever it might be. It would be around that keystone event where we would want to do something like that. So that's coming up in 2 years, if I remember right. So best advice I can do is on that is say, stay tuned. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, man.
So here's a good one. Can the KeyLock make a spectrum analyzer similar to the KissLock?
Let me think about that for a second. Probably, but I think you'd be wasting your money. The KeyLock has a DSP built into it, and the whole purpose to the KeyLock is to take the incoming signal from a source, a factory source, that has whatever time alignment, equalization, or all-pass filtering, which that's one of the cool things about the KeyLock is it's the only device on the market that will automatically detect and remove all-pass filtering, and does all that. Could you use a KeyLock as just a high to low-level converter to do that homemade RTA that John Meyer showed us? You certainly could, but I think you'd be kind of wasting your money because really all you need is a high to low converter. And the key to the KissLock and the KissLock 2, not that I'm trying to brag on us or engineers, but you're not going to find another high to low level adapter that is as flat from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz as that one is. I challenge it. Matter of fact, we did it on one of the Unmasked shows. Go back and find it. We actually had some just out of the box adjustable line output converter, and we didn't want to talk about the brand because it doesn't matter. And we compared it to a KeyLock, and you could actually see on the RTA where the bass and treble were rolled off, and on the KeyLock, they were flat out to 20 to 20. So they are good line output converters. The ironic part about it is there's very few situations that you need to use a KeyLock or a KissLock or a KissLock 2 with a kicker amplifier because of our fit technology. But we still offer it because there are some people that need to get a line output converter. And if you're looking for one, you're not going to find one that's any smaller or any flatter in frequency response than that KissLock or KissLock 2. They're fantastic pieces.
And they're super affordable for what they do.
They're very affordable.
All right.
I'm just looking at what Rob said.
I'm fighting with my mouse here. It's like the batteries are wanting to die. I can't get the stupid case off. Oh man.
You're welcome, Rob. And, I have to. There are things I know that I can't talk about yet, and I have to police myself when I answer questions. And it's not that I don't want to share information. There's just certain things I can or cannot share. So, as always, with me, read between the lines.
Right. Bobby, I didn't get to check my mailbox, man. I've been. So here's how my day went. I went to sleep about 11:30 last night. Woke up at 5:30 this morning. I've been at work since 6:30 to 7 p.m. and I ate a sandwich, and I came on here like 3 minutes before the stream, and we got Kip set up. So my mailbox is actually I have it away from the house. That way I don't get packages stolen. So
50th anniversary Warhorse. That's a neat idea.
All right, let's see if you guys have more questions, pop them back up because I've lost millions of questions in this chat already.
Yeah, and honestly, and it doesn't have to be kicker related. If you guys just have a question about audio in general, feel free to ask it.
Resolution separates.
I agree completely.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, and I heard you talking about the XPL subwoofer. That is the first generation, the ribbed XPL subwoofer is my favorite kicker subwoofer of all time.
I know why you liked it, because you got it. You understood what that driver is about. But the vast majority of people did not understand that the original XPL was not designed to be a high power handling subwoofer. It was designed to be an extremely light, extremely efficient cone with a motor on it that you could get tons of output from that driver with 125 to 175 watts. And so what people were doing with the original XPL is, you know, in every speaker, I don't care what it is, there's a limit to every speaker. Once you get to that limit, you can keep dumping all the power you want until you want, but once the speaker's at X max and it can't move any further, there's nothing else to get out of the driver.
Right.
And unfortunately, people thought that the XPL driver was a long throw, high output, big power subwoofer, when really what it was a short coil, underhung gap, ultra light rigid cone, and it was designed to get very loud on very little power. And the woofer sounded fantastic. I agree with you on that. It was a fantastic sounding subwoofer. It was very, very light for a subwoofer. And we did that driver for 2 years, I think, if I remember right.
And then you had the version 2, right?
And the V2 went away from being as efficient and as light of a cone and kind of went the direction of being more, dump more power into it, a little bit longer throw. And so some people were in love with the original and hate this version 2, and some people didn't like version 1 and they're in love with version 2. And it's just because they were literally completely two different products with two different design goals called an XPL.
Right. And the first gen, I like the look of the second gen better because I like the logo better. The first gen logo was kind of a little cartoonish, but the ribs were cool. And then the second gen now, I had four of them. I had 2 pairs on two 225s, and I done a 150 on an audio control mic in prefab boxes. So it's sealed too. That was sealed. That was not ported enclosures.
Right.
So.
You know, I see a question here I want to take because it's really not kicker related. It's 25 hertz of life. He says, do I recommend 2 or 1 run of power wire at 0 gauge OFC to any amplifier? Here's how I'm going to answer that question. I'm not going to talk about brand. I'm not going to talk about anything else, but I am going to talk about technology, and I'm going to talk about purpose. The first thing is all wire has resistance, all of it. And the longer run you need to go, the more voltage drop you're going to have. And that is why if you're doing a very, very short run, you might be able to pass 200 amps of current through a piece of 8 gauge and not get any significant drop over 6 inches to a foot. But now take that 8 gauge and stretch it out to 20 foot in a car, it's now good for 60 to 80 amps tops. And what it is the voltage drop that you're getting over that length of wire. So when it comes to, do I want to run 1 run of 1/0 or 2 runs of 1/0 or whatever you want to run, it's really a personal decision for you. You have to decide how much voltage drop are you willing to have at the end of your wiring setup. Are you wanting to have 1/10 of a volt drop? Are you happy with a 1/2 volt drop? Are you happy with a 1 volt drop? That's kind of a personal question. And that's really going to be completely based upon 2 things. How much current are you pulling and how long is the wire? And then you need to decide for yourself how much voltage drop is acceptable to you. There's no such thing as running too big of a power wire. It's not going to affect your performance in any negative way. It's just going to, the bigger the wire for a fixed distance, the less voltage drop you're going to get at that end of the wire. So it's kind of a personal thing. And I'm talking straight copper wire. Now, this is a bag of a can of worms that we've tipped on the table before. When it comes to speaker design and voice coils, understand that, you know, copper clad aluminum or copper, there's a reason that voice coil is made out of what it's made for. And that's the engineer designed that speaker. He had a budget he was working with. And I don't mean cost. I mean, he was working with how much weight can I have in this speaker? How much power handling can I have in this speaker? What's the moving mass of this thing as a total unit? Do I use edge wound or flat wound or round wound? There's all these things that go into making a speaker. Just understand when we say a speaker is rated for whatever power rating it is, that wire that's in that voice coil is designed to handle the power rating of that speaker. When we start talking about power wire in your car, understand this. If you run 4 gauge wire 20 feet from front to back in a car and it's solid copper, and then you turn around and you replace that with the same length of wire, but it's 4 gauge CCA, that wire will not pass the same amount of current as that solid copper wire. That is just a plain, simple fact. So don't get hung up in CCA or aluminum on voice coils and trying to draw a conclusion that that's the same conversation about power wire, because it's not the same conversation. It's a different conversation. Same principles are applying, but just understand you can use solid aluminum wire in your car if you wanted to for power. Just understand you're going to have to run probably 3 times as much of it from point A to point B to get the same current capacity carrying of one run of the same gauge in a solid copper wire. So it's a big thing. There's a lot of, it's just pure science. You got to look at it from that standpoint. Don't get too hung up on what's inside a voice coil, because that's a speaker designer's forte. If he's telling you that needs to be a 1,000-watt speaker, he knows that wire that's in there is going to be the right resistance and the right weight, and everything about that whole speaker as a balanced unit is the right thing it needs to be. But now if we start talking about power wire in your car or speaker wire in your car, you're always going to find me telling you you're wasting your money if you don't go solid copper. And if you're worried about corrosion, you always want to get tin-plated copper.
Right. And you got to think of this as everything's a system in a car, and it's all math. So just like in a speaker design, it's a system. You have so much weight, you want to move the mass, whatever your design goals are. That may be the reason, because copper is literally 3 times heavier than aluminum. And you can tell that when you're messing with the wire. Now, as far as the wire, if you have a stock alternator that's 140 amps, 2 runs of 0 gauge is going to do nothing for you. It's just you've got the one run has plenty of power to pull all the current you need back there. So you just got to think about what you're doing. Now, if you have a 400 amp alternator, 370 amp alternator, at that point, yeah, maybe 2 runs or 2-aught or 3-aught or so on and so forth. But you got to think about the complete system and not just the one thing. What I like to say is, don't just check boxes off. You get on the Facebook groups, you get on the forums, even YouTube, and you're like, this guy says this, I'm checking this box off, I'm checking this box off, without designing your system. You need to think about your system in particular. You need to do the math, do the work, figure out what's going to work best for you, not just try to, I've had a comment recently said, what were the gains set up on this amp? Because I'm just going to copy what you did. And I can understand the reasoning behind that, but my comment was, that's not how, this is what my gains were set out, but that's not how this works. You need to gain match your amp to your source unit.
Let me tell you a little story that has nothing to do with what you just said, but has everything to do with what you just said. I'm cursed. I don't just like car audio. I like home audio. I like home video. I like home theater. And I have champagne taste and a beer pocketbook. So I'm always trying to find the best I can afford to buy. And even if it's a little more than I can afford, I'll go, well, I could put that on the credit card and pay it off, and I'll really enjoy that TV or that home receiver or those speakers. So I stretch my budget to get really good stuff. When you buy a TV or a projector, whatever you're doing, and you're setting up a home theater, one of the things you're worried about is you want accurate color. You want really good contrast, you want deep blacks, and you want accurate color. And so a lot of times you have to go in and do what's called a calibration. And a lot of times you have to bring somebody with an eye or the gear to go in and actually color calibrate that TV so that all the colors are accurate. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people, when you see an accurate picture on a TV the first time, it seems dull. Understand the reason it seems dull to you is because all those TVs out there on display and the ones you take home are set into what I like to call crayon mode, where everything is just poppy and bright because people think if it's brighter, it's better. Well, not necessarily true. Once you get a TV calibrated, let's say that you didn't get into the menu behind the scenes that you can access. You just use the controls that are in front of you. So you got your gamma, you got your tint, you got your contrast, you got your color, you got the ones you can do from your remote. You can take 2 identical TVs from the same manufacturer, same model number, and you can calibrate one TV to get it to the point where it's accurate. And you could write down all the settings that you did on that TV. You can go to the identical TV, a different model, and put those same settings in, and it's not going to be the same picture. You have to calibrate each TV based upon that TV, because everything in electronics and everything that's done in mass production has tolerances. So most stuff is plus and minus 5%, plus or minus 10%. So TVs be such a full tilt boogie. That's the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
My TV although I say my TV I've got now, man, it's got like, I can't remember if it's rated 1,400 or 1,600 nits on HDR. When stuff blows up at night on my TV, like I almost have to put on sunglasses. Like, man, that's bright, man. I can't. man, turn that down. It's like, Rudolph, turn your nose down. It's a little too bright. But it's if that tells you that in TVs, you can't take the same settings from one TV and go to the exact same make and model and put those settings in and get the same results, the same thing applies to audio. Just because on that potentiometer, there's a little indicator there that says 50 hertz, and if you think you turn it there and it says 50 hertz, not on every single amplifier. That's why tools to set up oscilloscopes, frequency, RTAs, all those tools are useful because there's no such thing as 100% precision from setup to setup to setup. The only thing in audio that can even come close, and it's still not perfect, is when it's DSP controlled.
Yeah. It's everything is so system dependent. So it's hard to give advice, very specific advice. We're trying to give advice like on a grand scale, like this is what you do overall. But this could be different depending on what your setup is. I don't know what your setup is. You may have a source unit that puts out 0.2 volts. And if that's the case, your gain is probably going to be to 11.
Absolutely.
And it's just the way it's going to be sometimes.
Shade Tree Living, I've seen you ask this question a couple times in the feed. And again, I apologize. If anyone's ever been in a StreamYard feed, there's no way you can see every single comment, but I'm trying. He's asked, so I think you said, can a KeyLock replace? Okay. So let me explain this to you real quick. If you've got a factory radio that is rolling the bass off intentionally, which a lot of them do, whether it's a fixed roll off or it's adjustable, as you turn the volume up, it takes more and more bass away to protect the speakers. If that's the kind of bass roll off you're dealing with, the KeyLock will fix that for you. Basically what you'll do is you'll turn all the controls flat, turn the volume up to 3/4, run through the setup routine, and the KeyLock will re-EQ back in all that bass that's been sucked out of your system. Okay, the KeyLock will do that. Now, the KISS lock does not do that at all. The KISS lock simply passes whatever you put into it, it passes through itself accurately in a high to low level converter situation. So if your factory radio is giving you no bass roll off and it's giving you full 20 to 20 and it's not doing any of that voodoo, and you're trying to get that full bandwidth unadulterated into your amplifiers, your system, yeah, use a KISS lock. You don't need a KeyLock. But if you're dealing with a modern radio that has that roll-off built into it, you want the KeyLock. If you're trying to bring that bass back, that's what the KeyLock does.
There you go. And the KeyLock is the more expensive of the two, right?
Yeah, it's $100, which really, I'm not saying $100 isn't a lot of money, but for what that piece does, that's inexpensive.
That is very affordable. Buddha, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Dev Null, I love OLED. Since you bring it up, I absolutely love an OLED TV. But this is what I'll say. Even an OLED TV is not perfect. It has shortcomings. For example, if you look at some of them, LG, if you look at the LG models, they suffer from banding at the lower end of the color gamut. So when you get down to the blacks and the grays, there can be some banding or some squashing going on. They tend to be a little bit better in the Sonys, which what's funny about that is Sony buys the same panel from LG that LG uses in their OLED. It's just Sony puts their processor and electronics behind it.
Right.
OLED, if you're in a totally dark room and you're going to do home theater, OLED's amazing. Now, if you're in a bright room where you got to deal with lights coming through the window or you can't control the lighting, I don't think I'd necessarily recommend an OLED. The other pros and cons to OLED is currently on high dynamic range, 4K HDR. If you're like me, you're buying the stuff you want to watch on 4K Blu-rays and watch them at home. HDR on an OLED, the peak brightness level on an OLED, it tops out around that 600 nit mark. You go into a good high-end LED TV like the one I've got, and I'll tell you the model here in a second. It's like 1400 or 1600 nits. So on HDR content, when it's bright, it's bright. There's no perfect TV. There's a lot of them out there that are bad. But even when you look at the cream of the crop, you could say, okay, here's OLED and here's a top-of-the-line LED, and you start comparing them, you're going to find that, okay, I really like the OLED, but in this situation, the LED is the better choice. And so I got the bug a few years back. It was, of course, Black Friday. What does everybody do on Black Friday? Let's do TV time. Everybody buys a new TV on Black Friday, I think, including me. And I went out and I went out and I bought a TV, and it's a Sony. I like Sony TVs. I like Samsung too. Samsung to me out of the box has a little more cartoonish color pop. To me, the Sonys are a little more accurate. It just depends on what you're looking for, but they're both great TVs. There's also some good low price TVs out there that kind of like Hisense. Their Model 6 is pretty crazy for what you get out of it. But I bought a Sony TV, and it was at the budget I wanted to spend at that exact moment. And so I bought the TV. It was on sale. I took it home, and I watched it, and I'm like, It had some issues. It had a defect out of the box. So a brand new TV out of the box had a defect. Half the TV worked well. The other half the TV, I mean, literally, it was like a line down the center TV. The left half worked great. The right half didn't work well at all. Like it had a filter on it. And so then I got home, and I'm sitting and I'm watching the TV, and I'm like, well, it's really not bright like I like, and it's not this. And so I was starting to, besides the fact the TV had a problem, I'm getting this buyer's remorse feeling. So I get back in the car the next day. I go to Best Buy. I talk to the guy in the area there, and I start explaining it to him. And he's like, man, he says, we're really busy because of Black Friday. He says, we'll take care of the TV and get you another one, no problem. He said, could you come back in a couple days when we're not so busy with the Black Friday stuff? I said, yeah, that's fine. That's no big deal. So I waited a couple days, and I went back. Different guy meets me at the back, and I explained the whole thing to him again. He's like, oh, yeah, no problem. He said, well, tell me what. And so he and I get into an in-depth conversation on TVs, and he goes, you're not an average guy when it comes to TVs. I go, no, I know I'm not. He says, that TV you picked out's a good TV, but that's not the TV for you. I go, I know, but the TV I really want, I can't afford it. It's out of my price. Again, that champagne taste, but beer pocketbook. He said, the TV you need, he says, you need the ZD9. He said, the Sony ZD9. He said, they're getting ready to go end of life. He said, it's a $6,000 TV. I said, I know, I've looked at it. I can't afford it. He said, what if I told you I could get you one for $2,000? I said, you have my attention. He said, we're getting ready to put those on clearance because they're going end of life. He says, I personally have that TV in my home. And he says, I'm a videophile like you. He says, you're going to love this TV. He says, just buy it. I said, okay. I said, I know the TV's good. I couldn't afford it. So he took my TV back. They ordered me a ZD9. It came in 2 days later. I took the TV home, put it on the wall, and I went, oh, wow. That's awesome. So I currently have a ZD9. That's the TV I use right now. It's a beautiful looking TV. OLED is a gorgeous looking TV. Will not knock OLED. If I was going to play games or it was going to be a fixed image on the screen all the time, I'd be a little concerned about burn-in. Truth of the matter is, what I'm excited for is coming in the future is what's going to be called micro LED. And micro LED, I think, it has the potential to be the Nirvana TV we're all looking for.
Oh, there you go. Apple's doing that in their desktops and stuff. So.
And Dev, you're right. LED TV really means LCD with an LED backlight. Because when LCD TVs first came out, they literally used fluorescent bulbs back there to turn on. That's why the original LCD TVs, they'd actually get a little bit bright over time because that fluorescent bulb would warm up and come to temperature. When they moved to LED, they just changed the backlight. You're 100% correct on that.
Oh, this is a perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, Jason. It's gonna matter. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, are you trying to go full SQ? Do you want it to be loud? It's very dependent on your system, your taste. Do you want a 2-person tune? If you want a 2-person tune, the setup's gonna be totally different. Do you want a 1-seat tune? There's a lot of variables. What do you guys say about it, Kip?
When it comes to the Snowman tweeter pods or anything you're doing in a car, this is the one thing, and I hate to say it this way, but every car is different. When you put speakers into an automobile, you're dealing with the reflective material that's around the speaker, that's in front of the speaker, whether it's cloth, whether it's vinyl, whether it's plastic, whether it's glass. All of those materials change what you hear at your ear, because what you've got is the direct sound from the speaker, and then you've got the early and the late reflections, which are the sound that comes off the speaker, either off axis, it hits the material and comes at you, or travels behind you and hits the material and comes back at you. I can tell you, when we design speakers here at Kicker, we do it, and you've been here, Robert, you know what I'm talking about. We go back in the lab, and that lab is designed so that we can listen to just the speaker, because that's the only constant that we can rely on. We know if we make the speaker itself sound good, does that mean that just out of the box, throw it in a car, it's going to sound good in every single car? No. There are going to be some cases where we have to rely on the installer or the person putting the speakers in to make sure you're getting the best performance out of that speaker. Is the speaker sealed to the door? Is the frame actually covering, or is there gaps around the speaker so that sound's coming through? Are they putting Dynamat for doors? Guys, I got to tell you, if you're worried about how good your car sounds, if you're even talking sound quality and you're not at least Dynamat in your doors, you're wasting your time. You've got to make a good, solid environment for that speaker to play in. Dynamat the inner part of the door, dynamat the outer part of the door on the inside. When you're mounting that speaker in there, get fast rings. You want to get all that sound coming out of that speaker to come through that grill and not get trapped behind that factory grill right there. There's a lot of those things. People buy really high-end speakers and they don't do any of that treatment to their door. You're wasting your time. You've got to treat that door. I've done cars with KS. I did it for my own Parker, my son Parker. I did his truck for him. It was an older Chevy Silverado truck. And I went nuts. I dynamated the inside of the doors. I dynamated the inner skin. I dynamated all the plastic on the door panel. I put fast rings in there. And I ended up putting in just a set of KS components. So it was a tweeter and a 6.5 in his doors. Fired it up. I was blown away with how good his truck sounded with just a pair of 6.5s and a tweeter in it before I even added the subwoofer. So if you're chasing that SQ thing, we need to talk about great speakers and aiming them and all that, but you've got to treat the environment. And that's probably the biggest message I can give you is here at Kicker, we design speakers to sound good. We have no control over the environment or the car. That's up to you or your installer to take care of that.
Yeah, so, and me and Dean preach that all the time because and matter of fact, I don't even think Dean will sell a high-end set of speakers without requiring that they get the sound, because it's going to come back. They're going to be like, these didn't sound like I hoped they would sound. And at that point, it's spend less on these speakers, spend more on the sound treatment, and you're going to get your money's worth doing it that way. Always sound treatment.
I agree 110% with that statement. Buddha Acoustic, that's a question up there. You don't need to bring it up because I saw it fly by. He was asking about, and so this is one of those questions where I have to get into the Kip wink mode.
Yeah.
As I've said on the show, which is I'm approved to say, we are coming out with the Solo X family of products, and the L7X is the first line of gear in the Solo X family. Now, it would make sense if you're going to come out with a line of high-performance subwoofers, you probably need all the other things to go along with them. So,
yeah, I mean, I heard that you were switching all your tweeters to bullet tweeters, just like with a big sign on my face, like F HifiVega.
Here's the thing about that, and I know you have. Jeremy Brown, Aaron Surratt, Bill Frog, Bill Brown, and myself, we spent 3.5 years going to competitions and shows and checking out what's going on. We did that kind of research, and that's where this product came from. I mean, we actually went out in the field and said, what are you using? What are you doing? Why? And our goal with L7X is to set the bar. I mean, this driver isn't just designed to compete with what's out there. This is designed to set a new bar. Solo X tweeters, 1-inch max peak to peak.
There you go.
But this is what I'll say about compression loaded horns and bullet tweeters or things like that. There are all sort of materials you can use for the diaphragm. There's all sort of things you can do for those. And I've heard compression loaded horns and bullet tweeters that are the most hideous sounding thing I've ever heard in my life. Yes, they're loud, but they are horrible. And how you're listening to them the way they are, I have no idea. Right. I will say this: there are better sounding bullet tweeters, compression horns than some of the others. And then the thing that comes down to it is equalization. What are you doing for crossovers? How are you handling that? And I can tell you this: I know Dean. I've watched Dean say the same thing. You massage, tweak, tune, EQ, and play around with it. You can get a good bullet or compression driver, a good one, to actually sound pretty decent. Pretty decent to the point that it's just like they're very, 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 very efficient. So it doesn't take a lot of power to get them loud. But we're Kicker. If we were to come out with a bullet tweeter or a mid-range or anything like that in the Solo X family, if we were to do that, it's going to sound like a Kicker product.
Yeah. See, and I like compression drivers a lot. My beef with bullet tweeters is most of them are designed to just get super loud. The housing, the horn. So there's not much of a horn. It's just they're ear piercing. They're meant to like just destroy your ears. And like a compression driver, like loaded, CLD horns back in the day, image dynamic horns, actually really dig those. Super tweeters, on the other hand, it is what it is. Bullet tweets, super tweets.
Exactly. And it's, it's everything has a purpose. If you just want to get loud, you can also sound good. And if it doesn't sound good and loud, my thing I always ask is, what's the point?
Yeah.
If it doesn't sound good, what's the point?
There you go. Loud and clean.
Aaron T, the best way I can answer your question is, we're introducing L7X. It's the first thing in the Solo X family. And if you need woofers with lots of output, you probably need other things to go along with it.
And Vega wants to know how he gets adopted into the Solo X family.
Paperwork will be online soon. You can download and put your application in. And if you're lucky, or if we're lucky, we'll adopt you.
Rick, what's up? This is a good question. I have no clue.
Rick, I don't know, but I will say this. Someone was showing, man, I'm trying to think where I saw this. Maybe it was a TV show I was watching here recently. When I say TV, I mean something on YouTube. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. But it was actually tint for a car that you could apply voltage to, that it would go from completely they didn't look like there was tint on it at all, and you applied the voltage to it, and it became like 20% tint. Which,
oh, wow.
I'd love for because I've got fairly dark tint on my vehicle. The only time I don't like it is at night, because it's kind of difficult to back out because you can't see as well. Man, it'd be awesome to have some tint. I just flip a switch and it totally goes away.
Yeah, no kid.
That's awesome.
But before we get ready to wrap up here, I do want to announce. So I'm going to give away during this 12 days of streaming, or 10 to 9, however how many days of Christmas streams. I'm going to give away 2 HifiVega Big 3 kits with the battery terminals, the fuse holder, and everything. You're going to have 2 ways to win it. One way is next Tuesday, Kicker Unmasked. I will be live. We're going to give it away. I'll show it. We'll check it out. And on that show, I will tell people how to enter to win the other one on my channel.
I don't know how we could do it tonight. Kip, so you saying the new Kicker line of products come with extra gravy? Yeah, it's going to come with all the gravy. Like don't buy the bottle of Heinz gravy or the jar. Pick up the case. That's what it's going to come with. A whole case of Heinz gravy. Or if you like to make your own gravy, it'll be that Pioneer in the bag where you can mix it to whatever flavor you like. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a case of making your own gravy. How would we give away a couple? If I wanted to give away some stuff tonight, how would we do that?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, it's Christmas.
Yeah, we can do something like a random comment after the video's done.
Z Hedge, we need square radiators. That's not the first time that's been asked for, Z Hedge. We obviously make the round passive radiators. We use those in the TRTP and the Comp RT boxes, and we sell the radiators separate if you want to do them. The key to passive radiators, and this is where it gets a little, I don't want to say sketchy, but you need to make sure the passive radiator you're using is designed to work with the throw of the subwoofer you're using. So, for example, we've had people ask this question, well, man, what if I get an L7X and I can use some of those passive radiators you've got? No, you can't do that, because the passive radiator doesn't have the throw capability that the driver has. The radiator and the woofer have kind of got to be matched to work with each other. But we have people ask for square radiators. The thing for us is we'd have to figure out, well, square radiator for what? Because we make L7T, we make L7R, make L7S and Q. The same radiator could probably work for S and Q, but it wouldn't be the right one to use for R or T. So that's kind of where we sit in that. But we have had people ask. You're not the first to bring that up. And so don't think it's not in our bucket of thoughts, and it could happen sometime. So.
Yeah, there we go. Let me get HifiVega. So what do we have to look forward to on the 12 days of streaming? So tomorrow, me and Dean, obviously, we're doing our thing. We're going to talk about our favorite stuff of 2021. Our favorite, and of course, it's me and Dean. We got to also talk about our least favorite stuff of 2021. And then we're going to review, the paint guy. I'm talking about, Kip. The happy paint guy. He does the paintings. Guy. Yeah, it's like on public access. The documentary.
Okay, yeah.
Someone in the comments, you guys got to help me.
Jack
Bob
Handy
Ross. Bob Ross.
I always want to call him Jack Handy because of the Saturday Night Live skit, but yeah, Bob Ross.
So we're gonna do that, and then Friday, I'll be streaming before Rolling Thunder. I have an idea, but I don't want to tell you guys until we get to that day. Saturday, El Fuego is going to join me. Sunday, don't know yet. Monday, no stream. Tuesday, I will be on Kicker Unmasked. And then maybe Wednesday, I'll show you the studio on my stream, show you the Kicker studio, and kind of we could talk with Ernie or some of the guys and see what you got going on.
Samuel, we don't know what's in the cup. I mean, it's an unmasked cup. Is it tea? Is it flavored tea? Is it different tea?
It's
a beverage.
Strong. There's always a question what's in the cup. And I didn't have time to grab my cup. I've been using my Kicker cup though, my HifiVega Kicker cup. So,
you know, that's just a little gift that we decided we wanted to do for anyone who's been on the show. So we hope you like that. Question. I think it was Andy that posted it. Could you use a spare as a passive radiator? The answer to that is yes, you could. I don't want to give people bad ideas here, but I'll share ideas. We actually have one of the guys that works in customer service has a Comp Q15 in his vehicle. And of course, working here, you've got certain perks. So he went to the dumpster of parts to go, woofers that are sent back for warranty, no good, and are going for recycling. He actually pulled a Comp Q15 out that was a blown coil. And so he took the motor off, took the coil off, and he worked with Addrerss right up front. And of course, the whole key to a passive radiator is the moving mass of it. I mean, it's got to have the throw capability of the power driver you're using as well, but then it's the weighted mass of the driver in conjunction with the size of the box that determines tuning frequency. And he worked with Addrerss on that. And so he took a blown speaker of the same model, took the motor off, weighted down on there, and turned it into a passive radiator. And I've heard it in his own vehicle. Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's all about the weight. Passive radiators. I mean, it seems confusing to people, but passive radiators are just a port, except you're making weight to adjust it instead of length and width and height.
Exactly. SJC Audio Guy, I've seen that comment at least twice. I'm going to answer it for you. Any speaker can be used in free air application. Now, here's the caveat. When you put a speaker in free air application, its power handling is significantly reduced. And the reason it is when you take a speaker that's designed for a box, that power handling, besides what the voice coil can handle, it's also, how much power is it going to take this thing to full excursion? And when you take away the box air spring, whether it's a sealed box or a tuned ported box, because basically a tuned ported box acts like a sealed box above tuning, either one, when you take that air spring away, the woofer's only way to control itself is its own suspension, meaning the surround and the spider. So any speaker can go free air. Just remember, it's going to take a whole lot less power to get it to full excursion, and that's user error. You got to know when to say when. So could you free air an L7? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. It falls under the classification of a subwoofer, and you can free air any subwoofer. If you go back into the Wayback Machine, the free air drivers that Kicker made, there was the Comp and the free air. The difference between those two drivers was the suspension, and the free air driver had a lot more suspension to control itself because it was being used in a free air application, which also it worked really well in ported boxes as well. But hopefully that answered your question. I haven't tried one of these, in a free air application to listen to it. We actually motored one on the show last night. So if you haven't seen that, go find Kicker Unmasked Live from last night. It's one we did with Billy Temple and Bass Wars. And you can fast forward if you want to the end of the show, but about the last 10 minutes, we actually free air motor an L710. And to say it's impressive is an understatement.
Yeah, for sure. And free air, when I'm looking for a free air driver, first of all, I'm looking for something with higher power handling for the reasons you said, and X-Max, peak-to-peak X-Max, because as long as you have those, the QTS also matters, but those, you just need power handling and X-Max, and you can figure it out from there.
I see a question here. It's from Matt. I think it says Matt Stark. He's asking, what's the former material on the Kicker L7X? Will you offer different former materials? Currently, and I think we're far enough along that this is set in stone, but the former material on the L7X voice coil former is going to be aluminum. The L7X will only be available with the aluminum voice coil former. And that's all I can say.
That's all. You don't want him to use his get out of jail free card.
I need to keep that one.
Yeah.
But yes, aluminum.
All right, we'll get a few more questions in before we log out. So you guys put them in there, bring them back.
The last 10 minutes are always rigged, Deviant. Matter of fact, if you're tuned to Unmasked Live, for you, it's basically all rigged.
Well, you know, the funny part is, last time I was on the show, I think that I personally knew the 3 winners that got picked that night. So that was I was like, whoa.
Here's something I want to present to the group as they're asking questions going through here. Everyone's focused on big wattage, big wattage, big wattage. They want woofers that handle big wattage. And I get it, because the woofers that are out there today and what people want to do, which I affectionately call it floating babies and bricks in the window.
Yeah.
You need a driver that has extremely long throw, because what you're trying to do is move a lot of air in that 20 to 40 hertz range. I mean, that's where you're getting that wind effect. So I get that that's why everyone's focused on big power subwoofers. But if you go back and watch last week's feed and last night's feed, where we powered up the L7X15 and the Solo L7X10, L7X10. I call it Solo X, guys, so I correct myself. It's L7X. I had the AMM1 power meter hooked up on there because what I wanted you guys to see was how much real-world power was coming out of that amplifier to make that speaker do what it was doing. And just because a speaker can handle a ton of power, any speaker, doesn't mean you're always going to put that much power into it. And if the speaker gets to full excursion with, say, 500 watts or 700 watts in a particular design that you have or box, that extra power doesn't do you any good. Once a speaker reaches full excursion, more power gives you nothing. There's nothing else to get. The speaker is at its full capability. So I'm hoping that when you guys, if you've seen the feeds, or maybe if you go back and watch them, even if you just watch the demo of the drivers, these drivers, they are big, they are monsters, but they are tight gap, very well controlled, and they do a whole lot with not a whole lot of power.
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things.
Well, I would always rather have something more efficient. I know that the trend today is big power because power is cheap, and that's what's being marketed. That's what's being pushed. But efficiency to me is the most important thing in my systems. I've never run an amp over 1,500 watts in any of my vehicles, and I won't today because efficiency to me is so important. But cheap power, sometimes you can get loud on low power. That's my point I'm getting to. It's a matter of design and efficiency. It's how much time do you want to put into it? Do you want to just buy the cheapest power you can get, try to make it loud that way? Or do you want to take the time to design your system, make it efficient, make it sound good? All the above.
And exactly, I see a comment here from Juan Romero Jr. And Juan, you're 100% right. Even though I said what I said, understand, I'm the guy here at Kicker that I always want to have more power on tap than I need, always. If I'm building a system and I need 500 watts to run my subwoofer, I want to have 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,500 watts on tap. Set the gains properly and know when to say when with the volume knob. But that's on me. If I got way more power than my sub can handle, it's up to me to say when I'm driving it too hard and I've got to stop. Unfortunately, I can tell you by the stuff that comes back for warranty return, some people don't know when to say when.
Yeah, most stuff.
But headroom, absolutely. Headroom is a great thing to have. I agree completely.
You call it headroom. I call it gravy.
Gravy. Let's go with your word. I like lots of gravy.
This is pretty BD. The way you do it is don't. I always recommend people that have their battery in their trunk. If your amp's in your trunk, I would just wire the amplifier directly to that battery, and don't ground to the car. Just ground directly, power and ground straight to the battery, and then you don't have to worry about the big three. What do you think, Kip?
At that point, what you're dealing with, if you've got a battery in the back of your car and your power and your ground is going to that battery, what you have to rely on at that point is the big three. And I would still do one, because at that point, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get power delivery from your alternator and your primary battery in the front of the car to fill your battery in the back of the car as efficiently as it can. I've been doing, back when I did it, I don't even think we called it the big three, but I've been doing an upgrade like since mid 80s. I would take every car I owned and I would change the factory ground. I would change the ground from the battery to the chassis, from the alternator to the car. I would upgrade the ground from the motor to the car. I would upgrade all these grounds, not just for audio, but the crazy thing was when I upgrade all these grounds in the car, my lights didn't dim or flash as much. My horn actually sounded louder. My power windows worked better. Everything in the car just worked better because it had a better ground return path. And if you look at the ground that most factory, I mean, they're going to put in just enough ground to barely cover what they've designed the car for. You add any extra load on top of that, or over time those connections get corroded or things like that, you lose voltage.
Yeah. See, and this is what Thomas Marshall, the reason I say that is because if you're doing this, often you're using a factory alternator. And this is like a BMW thing. BMWs all do this. And they have one-out welding cable, perfectly capable of taking your current from the front to the back. They call it battery cable, but it's welding cable. It's pretty much the same thing. And that's like plenty. You can upgrade your grounds, but the reason I wouldn't is if you already got your amp back there. I mean, you could upgrade your grounds and it's going to help everything else, but your amp, don't ground it to the chassis at that point. Ground it straight to the battery.
100.
Yeah.
100. Hippopotamus. Am I on team no fuse from alternator to main bat? No. Whether it's because I was just raised that way or I competed so much in a competition organizations in the the mid 80s to late 90s, proper fusing was, I mean, first off, if you didn't have proper fusing, you could be disqualified and not even compete. You had to have proper fusing. And so, yeah, if any system I installed that I was doing as an installer in those days, if that cable got pinched or cut anywhere between the front and the back, whether I had a battery in the back or not, it was properly fused at each end so that wire could not become arky sparky fire hazard. So yeah, I'm definitely not on team no fuse, but I will tell you a funny story that you'll like this one. My own personal vehicle, I had a Plymouth Laser, and it was pretty well decked out. And I want to say it was a CDX 800, but I may have the model number wrong. It was the high-end Sony in-dash player that had the copper chassis, and I think it was a CDX 800, but I could be wrong on the model number.
It probably is.
And it was a great head unit. It was a fantastic head unit, and everything was in the car. I was in the back. I was working here at Kicker, and I was taking out some amplifiers. We were doing some amplifier testing, so I was taking the amp under test out, and I was putting in another amplifier under test in my own personal car. We do that here as Kicker employees. A lot of times we test product in our own vehicles. And when I unplugged the RCAs from the amplifier and I went to lay them down, I wasn't as cautious as I should have been, and the tip of one of my RCA cables touched 12-volt positive. I found out just how fast I could get the trim panel and the radio out of a Plymouth Laser because that radio caught on fire. It sent 12 volts obviously up the center pin lead and it started a fire in the radio. And that radio was made of something that wanted to burn forever. Once it caught fire, it did. So I am in full-on panic mode trying to get a flaming radio.
That magnesium chassis.
Oh, that's what it kind of felt like. And so I'm up there with smoke and flames licking out, and I'm getting the panel off, and I'm getting the screws out, and I'm getting the radio out, and I'm chucking it on, I'm plugging everything and chucking it outside. And there it burns. My can't be replaced CD. Like I said, I think it was a CDX 800, but I could be wrong. But it was the full copper chassis, whammy jammy Sony in-dash that was available, back in that time frame. And I was just like, man, I don't want to do that again. So, and I had everything fused properly, but it was just a case of where the tip of my RCA accidentally touched the power wire that I'd pulled from the amplifier. It touched it, and all it took was, and I couldn't get it off there fast enough, and that radio just went up in flames.
It can happen.
It does happen.
I think this depends on, is your battery that you have now good? If it is, I would do the big three because it's cheaper and it's an easy upgrade. If your battery is kind of weak right now and you need a battery, get the battery first, then do the big three later.
Someone asked a strange question. Favorite vegetable? Man, I was one of those odd kids which turned into an odd adult. I actually like vegetables. There's not, I mean, even vegetables I didn't like as a kid, I've grown to like as an adult. So favorite vegetable? Man.
It is. I hate green beans. So I'm a texture guy, and I don't like the snap and then the mushy.
Oh,
But
you don't like
I
that?
like peas. I like peas because they are what they are. They're just mushy the whole time.
I'm looking there. It looks like E&E Duran. Hopefully I got your name right. Is that right, E&E?
Let me
Is
see.
Kicker ever going to make a head unit?
Oh, you do.
Oh, it's Lonnie. Now that it's big, I can see it. I kept
Lonnie,
thinking it was
yeah.
an eye when I was looking in the chat feed. So, Lonnie, here's what I'll say, Lonnie. That's kind of a funny question. I've been here at Kicker long enough that I can remember the days when I used to say to people who asked me this question, Kicker's never going to make a head unit. It's not something we're going to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've lived here long enough to eat those words because we do make head units. Now, they're not necessarily for cars specifically, but we make media source units that are used for marine, ATV, and UTV. And a lot of guys will use that radio when they're doing custom builds, rods, custom center consoles. There are guys that use these, even though they're not a car radio, you can absolutely use them in a car environment. So we do make some source units. If you're asking the real deeper question, which is Kicker ever going to make a CD player or a head unit or double DIN or single DIN or whatever for car? The answer to that is realistically, probably not. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, because we do work on the OE side. I mean, we work with the big car manufacturers and make systems for them as well. We saw the handwriting on the wall 20 years ago. And the days of you being able to change the radio in your car, if you're into any of the cars today, some cars today, you can't change that radio. There's just no way. You're stuck with that factory radio. Some cars, you can change the factory radio, but you're spending as much money, or if not more money, on the dash kit and the interface box than you did the radio itself, just so you can get it in the car. And there are a few cars still where you can put a radio in, but the bottom line is all cars are moving to the point where they're going to be so tightly integrated into the car that changing them is just not going to be realistic, which is why we're focused more on, KeyLock, KISS loads, making sure our amplifiers will work with any radio out there that's, factory or aftermarket, either one, because the days of changing your radio in your car, unfortunately, are not what they used to be.
And they're not under your control.
Zero control. We have absolutely no. We make what works, and fortunately for boats and UTVs and things like that, we can still make radios for that. So we do make radios for those. And guys who are doing rods or customer things, if they ask, "Hey, I'd like to use a Kicker radio," we go, "Well, we have these." And in a lot of cases, they like those better anyway, because instead of being a DIN unit, they're more of that square or slightly rectangular, larger unit, color display. People really like those format of radios. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, I was saying no car audio. There's not going to be very many new car audio manufacturers coming out with a head unit that don't already make them. If they make them, it's kind of a legacy product, and they'll probably continue to maybe make them as they do, but you're not going to see a lot of innovation in head units. It's just the way it's going to be. Floating screens, I would say maybe, but that's it.
I'd agree to that. Looks like Carlos Portillo. Hopefully I got that right. He's asking, he says, what is compression for on the IQ amplifiers? That's a great question, Carlos. Since I saw it, I want to answer it for you. What compression is in any form is taking a signal and reducing it. That's what you do with compression, is you're taking a signal and you're reducing it. And so what compression on the IQ amplifiers is for is you can go in and set up a system, and if you got yourself, or if you're setting it up for a customer, like this is made for dealers to use, and they're a little crazy with the volume knob, they don't know when to say when, but you still want to give them full potential of the amplifier, you can go into the IQ amplifiers with that compression, and basically you can set at what voltage does compression start kicking in, how much do I compress, and then after I compress that signal or pull that signal back down, how quick do I release and let it go back. And so you can basically have something that, is very slow acting, just barely grabs the signal and pulls it down, lets go, pulls it down, lets go. Or you can have what I like to call a brick wall, where it grabs it, sucks it down, holds it there, and then lets it go back up. And so that can be, if a guy really doesn't know how to stop on his volume knob, you can do a hard compression so that when you get to the clipping point of the amplifier, the compression just takes it and pulls it down. Basically, if you set it up really strong, you can have it to where, for every dB of signal, for every 4 dB of signal you drive into the amplifier beyond its full output capability, it only lets 1 dB out. And you can even have it be harder than that. So the compression in an IQ amplifier, it can be used for people who don't understand when to say when with the volume knob, so a system is more reliable for them. Or the good news is, even if you're a sound quality person, if you just want those dynamic peaks that might reach up and soak all that power out of your amplifier, and you don't want them to try to reach out so far, you could just put a real mild pullback on it that's really, honestly, not audible, but it takes it from being a hard clip to a very mild clip. And so it's fully adjustable. It's built into the IQ amplifiers. You do need to understand compressors, and you need to play around and, actually real world see, oh, okay, this is how a compressor works. This is what it does. And then once you understand that, you can play around with those controls in the amp, and you can dial in your amplifier to do anything you want. Just a mild pullback, a heavy pullback, a fast release, a slow release. It's whatever you're looking to do. It's a great tool in the IQ amplifiers.
I'm glad Carlos asked that, because I've never used compression, so I had no clue what to use it for, and it sounds just like a factory-based roll-off if you want to go crazy with it.
It can even mimic that if you want to do that with it. But that's what it's for. It's actually a fantastic tool, whether you're someone who doesn't know when to say when with the volume knob, or even an SQ guy. Properly used compression can be a great tool. Oh,
Brian, actually, I totally agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of the spike grills.
The spike grills, it was kind of a style thing. People really like those. We did them for a while. They're still kind of popular with a lot of people. I understand your desire to have a regular grill. Stay tuned.
Yeah, because I know the people that like the spike grills, I think they have the barbed wire tattoos still.
Probably so. Probably so.
Oh, I had to do it.
There's a good question I want to take. Aaron T. Hey, Kip, what do you think about epicenters added to one system? Aaron, I am old enough that I can remember back. The first epicenter that I owned for myself was in the Wayback Machine when they first came out. No one local to me sold audio control, so I actually had to get in my car. And the very first one I bought, I think I drove to Toledo, Ohio, which is about 90 minutes north of me. And I went to, I think it was called Car Stereo One, if I remember right. And I purchased my first epicenter, brought it back, put it in. Of course, I was ecstatic about it. And I used that first epicenter for a while. And of course, sometimes we, as listeners, if it's just different or it's more of something, you immediately think it's better. But then sometimes you get to the point you go like, yeah, I like Van Halen, but they didn't have this much bass in the recording, and this just doesn't sound right to me. And so I personally have purchased, used, owned, and sold probably half a dozen epicenters over the years, because I get it, I use it, I like it, and then I get to the point I'm like, this just isn't really what I want, and I pull it out of the system. And then I get to the point where I'm like, man, it'd be really cool if I had an epicenter, because this one song, I know if I use it on this one song. So what I'll say about an epicenter, from my perspective, I think it's a fantastic product. I think what you have to realize with an epicenter is just because you have it doesn't mean you should use it on every song, and you need to dial in and dial down how much of that effect you apply to music based on genre, based on to when the recording was made, and all sorts of things. Because if you take some of the music that's made today that has lots of content already in the recording in that mid-20s to 40 hertz range, you don't necessarily need to add a lot of epicenter to it. And if you do add a lot of epicenter to it, you can end up overdriving your subwoofer pretty easy. But then if you go into some older recordings, or if you're using MP3s, or if you're using satellite radio, you might find you really like what an epicenter can do for you, because it does give you that lower octave back. So my best advice on epicenter, I love it. Just understand, just because you have it doesn't mean you should use it all the time. And you definitely got to learn how to use that blend control to make sure you're getting the right amount so that it sounds right without overdriving your subwoofers.
Yeah. That's how we used to rebase our own music back in the days before people were rebasing them.
When I turn it up, it starts crying. Yeah. I think I set the sensitivity too high.
I know. So next Tuesday, I got to figure out some way to get you to tear up. That's my goal. I got to think of something sentimental.
Well, it can happen. So
I know, man. I know. You're such a genuine dude. You're like a kind-hearted. And that's what everyone loves about you, man. You can't hide it. And when it gets sentimental, Kip goes there.
I just saw it. It's going to keep me from crying right now. Larry, I had a BBE Sonic Maximizer back in the day as well, and I loved that piece. I wish I'd have kept it. That thing was awesome. There was another one I had too. Besides the BBE, I had one called, doggone it. There were some really cool processors back in the 80s and 90s, and they're just not made anymore. That market kind of fell off, but there was something cool about certain processors. I'm trying to think. It was called Aphex Oral Exciter with big bottom. Do you remember that one at all, Hi-Fi?
No, no.
Okay, that's another processor I had back in the day. It was called the Aphex Aural Exciter, and it had a bass enhancer. It was called the Big Bottom. And, you know, processors like that, every time I bought one and put it in the car, it was just fun. I got to, let's experience what this piece can do. And sometimes you'd find that the experience was just purely for fun. And sometimes it's like, wow, this really does make this particular music sound a little bit better. But yeah, it's funny you said that. BBE, I had one of those, and then I had the Aphex Aural Exciter as well. I loved processors. I miss Spectrum analyzers. I know Big D, I know he's not on here tonight, but he's big about VU meters. And sometimes when he says VU meters, I think he means Spectrum analyzer too. I think he means both.
Yeah, it's interchangeable to him.
I love Spectrum analyzers. There was a time when I would put some of those cheap Spectrum analyzer power booster EQs in my car just for the light show. Signal didn't go through them. I just fed a signal so I could watch it dance. But as far as functionality, I had a Kenwood. It was the KGC 9400. And if anybody even knows Kenwood from back in those days, this had been way back there. But it was a half DIN. It had touch buttons up and down for the 7-band EQ. It had 4 presets. You could turn the EQ on for front or rear. And it had a Spectrum analyzer in that half DIN. It had green LED. I think it was a single yellow or maybe 2 yellows and a red. But God, I missed that piece. I love that little piece. I wish I'd have kept it.
They sell them now. I think some of them just make, that's literally, who was it? Denon they were just VU meters, and they were like $400, and that's all it was a DIN size VU meter you put in there.
Yes. So I am with Big D when it comes to that. I like Spectrum analyzer. I like VU meters. I enjoy them. It's something, I don't know what it is, but it's just, audio is an audible experience. And then when you get into these systems that have gotten big and badder over the years, then it's a visceral experience where you're feeling it. But then to see the music actually playing out and doing its thing, it adds that visual experience that just, I don't know what it is about it. I just love it.
Oh, Derek has a Proton home amp that he done a video replacing the backlights with the V meters. Oh man, that is the sickest amp ever. If you haven't watched it, definitely recommend that. It's one of my favorite Wilson Audio Lab videos of all time.
Deviant, the one I had was half DIN, but it was full width. It had the Spectrum in it. The one you're talking about was the KGC, I think it was the 4400, and it was half DIN and it was half DIN width. It was a little 5 or 7-band EQ. And I sold and installed more of those than I can count. My trick back in the day is and I would have actually people come in and request me to do it, is I would hide that in their ashtray. It's not a big deal in cars today, but back then with the pull-out ashtrays, I would actually go in and make a ABS plastic and cut the ashtray out and drop it in there and flush it in and up at an angle. So you close the ashtray, you couldn't even see the EQ, but then you pulled the ashtray out, there's the EQ staring at you right there. And that Kenwood half width DIN, it was full DIN or half DIN height, half DIN width, was awesome for that.
And you just felt super cool when you popped out that ashtray. Look at this.
I felt super cool showing it off just because the first time I did one, it wasn't even a request. I'm doing this car and I'm like, I want to put it somewhere, but I'm like, so I went up and I said, hey, do you smoke? And the guy's like, no, man, I don't even use that. And so he said, if anything, I just throw my change in there. I was like, you okay if I do a little modification and do some stuff? He's like, man, do what you want. So I kind of wanted to keep it a secret, so I did. And so back then, Dremel tool and everything. And so I worked this into that ashtray. And when it was all done, I'm sitting there looking, I'm going like, man, that looks really good. I like that. That's awesome.
Did you set them with the factory V pattern?
Oh, back in the day, they're all V pattern. There is nothing else but the V pattern. I mean, come on.
That's it. All right.
All the EQs should just become set like this.
Right. Exactly. Tell that to Steve. See what he thinks about that. All right.
Oh.
Let's sign off. Is there you got anything to pimp? How should people find you, Kip?
Here's what I'm going to say. Genuinely, I enjoy getting on any of these feeds I can with you and Dean or anyone else out in the community. It's my pleasure to get to spend some time with you directly and all the people who get to tune in. I think that's really cool. If I was to pimp anything, the one great thing, but it slowed down the production of everything that we have to offer. But the one great thing that came out of COVID is it allowed us to push the buttons and launch this unmasked thing that we started. which turned into Kicker Unmasked Live Weekly. And, you know, genuinely, yeah, it's a Kicker show. We do it here at Kicker, but we're not here to we're not a hard sell. That's not what we're here to talk about. We actually want to show off the products. We want to talk about technology. We want to bring guests in. And man, if you enjoyed talking car audio, old school, new school, whatever it is, I am proud of what we have put together in Unmasked Live Weekly. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of what we do, a lot of what we're trying to emulate comes from the simple fact of the pioneers, and I mean that genuinely, the pioneers like HifiVega or Derek or Dean, or the list goes on and on and on of people I could state who are doing this. And I'm humbled, proud, and honored when these people have such glowing things to say about the show we're doing, because all of us here on this side of the fence, we're just all going, man, hope this comes out okay. We're just trying really hard.
Yeah, man. And I really do like Kicker Unmasked it's just awesome. It's awesome to have an actual person to talk to. If they're mad at Kicker, guess what? Tuesday nights at 7:30, you can yell at Kip straight in the chat and Bill will see it. So
he will. And you know, that feed, that chat, I'll tell you, it's sincere. We try to keep Kicker Unmasked Live Weekly kind of a PG-13 rating. We really try to watch our language and things we do. What goes on in the chat feed goes on the chat feed. As long as people are respectful, that just goes. Bill's had to, you know, bat a few people down with some timeouts a few times because we really want to try to keep it a neutral playing ground. And Steve Irby would want it that way. But man, the show, we're really proud of what we're putting on there. And so any feedback, anything you guys like to see on the show, please let us know. We're sincere about that offer. And couldn't be happier that you guys choose to spend 90 minutes of your time with us on a Tuesday night.
Right. And my wife watches every Kicker Unmasked, but she does not watch any of my content, if that tells you anything. So
well, she'll have to watch it next Tuesday.
Yeah, she'll have to watch it next Tuesday.
She'll have no choice.
Yeah.
But it's sincerely, thank you for inviting me on, Robert. I mean, I'm humbled to be here and on the feed with you. I love answering questions. I love the new people that I see come in that I've never seen before, and the people who keep coming back. Love talking to you, love chatting with you. It's nice that we share this connection through car audio. And for me, it's not just car audio. To me, it's technology, it's home, it's car, it's everything. And I'll bore you to death on any of that. And if I'm lucky, I'll get to spend some time with you at an event sometime in the future, and we can break bread and have a few drinks at a local watering hole, because nothing better than that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll be there next Tuesday. It's going to be fun. Next Tuesday and Wednesday. So
I'm looking forward to it as well. So you got to tune in next Tuesday, 7:30 Central Time, right here on Kicker Facebook and YouTube channels. We're going to have Robert HifiVega live in the studio, and we're going to do some giveaways with him. It's going to be a good time. And just to show you that's not scripted, that's just off the top of the head. And you got to tell me I want to give away something tonight, or a couple somethings tonight. So tell me how we're going to do it.
All right, so let's do it this way. The first, how many? Like 2 items, you think?
Well, let's do this. I'd like to give away. We do it every Tuesday night, so I know I won't have to use my get out of jail free card if I do this. Let's give away 3 packages, and let's make those packages be a set of Tabor 2 Bluetooth headphones, a Kicker Unmasked Live t-shirt, and a pair of koozies. So basically our second place winner prize package that we do every Tuesday night currently, let's give away 3 of those.
All right. So here's I've thought about this. This is how we can do this. The first 3 people that email me at hifivega@gmail.com, my most viewed video.
Ooh.
So my most viewed video on my channel, email it to me. You guys better click now. But hifivega@gmail.com, whatever that video is, and I'll see the timestamps in the email. So if you win, I'll contact you back, get your shipping info, and pass it along.
We'll absolutely do that. And then I know HifiVega kind of let the cat out of the bag. We're going to look at his Big 3 kit here next Tuesday. Are we going to give one away?
We're going to give one away. The Big 3 kit. I've got new stickers that I'm working on. We're going to do the battery terminals, everything. The whole shebang, keychain. I'm doing keychains now, so.
Well, you know what?
I haven't told you guys this, but you've got a package on the way from me. The Kicker Unmasked crew. You'll see it. Bill has been in cahoots with me. So, yeah. So, I think it's going to get there like Friday night. So you'll see it Monday.
Okay. Well, someone in the feed suggested, and that might be a good idea. If you're going to do a big 3 wiring kit, maybe we'll throw in a kicker wiring kit. So basically, it would be a full kit for someone to upgrade, do the big 3 upgrade, and have the wiring that they need to go back and hook up an amplifier. Maybe we'll get together. We'll talk about that as we break bread here at the lunch table on Tuesday night.
Right. Hey, that would be a good combo. You know, I love wire. I love accessories.
I know you do. And guys, sincerely, when it comes to Kicker Unmasked, I have a loose script. I write down my notes on a little yellow piece of paper, and that's just the high points I want to cover. That's as much scripting as there is in the show. It's all open from there. So when it comes to prizes and things to do, we do kind of have a little bit of structure there, but nothing says we can't come up with some prizes on the fly. And this sounds like one we just came up with on the fly.
There we go. Sounds perfect.
Love it.
All right. So you guys check me and Dean out tomorrow. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about things we love and, more importantly, things we hate. I know you guys love it when me and Dean hate things. So we'll see you tomorrow at the same time, 7:30 p.m. CST. Appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate Kip joining as always. You know, I'm gonna get Kip right now. Kip really is a good friend. Like, Kip is such a good guy, such a genuine guy. I'm always happy to have Kip on, and I like to prod Kip and just get him going, get him spun up. So I really do appreciate you, someone of your stature, taking the time to come on the HifiVega stream and just cut it up and talk about, you know, random things, but not banana Laffy Taffy.
No banana Laffy Taffy.
Right.
It's my pleasure. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure hanging and spending some time with you. See you all next Tuesday night, or better than that, I'll be in the chat feed tomorrow night. We'll see you all tomorrow night when Dean